So good morning. Um, I'm Sarah Harkness from In Accountancy. We're a small in accountancy firm based in Stockport in South Manchester. And I've been spending the last few days really communicating with our clients and making sure they know what is available to them, you know, what they can be doing, and they've got a really clear idea of what's going on at the moment and what support is available. Now, I'm recording this at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, the 26th of March. So the information that I'm giving now is the information that we know at this time. And there are a lot of things that are still in development, but I thought it might be useful if we tried to separate some of the fact from fiction. So excuse me if I haven't done this before, so excuse me if I bounce around a little bit as I try and screen share and point people to the best possible guidance and what we have available at present. So let's start with furloughing. Let's start with this 80% salaries paid that is available to employees. Now, this is to employees who would otherwise be laid off. A question that we're having very frequently is, well, how do I access 80% pay for my employees that are working from home? So just give me a moment here while I try to share my screen with you, and I'll talk you through some of the guidance that is available. 1 second. I'm going to go to the wrong page on my desktop, so give me a moment. So this website is a very useful one. This is the government's official business support website. Coronavirus financial support is on here, and this can be found at businesssupport.gov.uk. I'll post a link in the text from the follow-up from this. So what we've got here, excuse me, I don't know how to get rid of that. There we go. Apologies for that. So within this website, we have some really clear guidance on everything that is available at present. Don't know why that's come up, mind you. So for example, coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, the business rates holidays, the cash grants for retail and leisure, your job retention scheme, which is the furloughing scheme we're talking about, the grant funding for small businesses, SSP rebates, time to pay arrangements, the corporate financing facility for bigger businesses, business rates holiday for nurseries. They've been added to that list of leisure and retail businesses, VAT referral and how that operates, and deferral of self-assessment payment. I would expect that within the next 24 hours there will be another box here which will relate to support available for the employed and the self-employed. So let's jump to the job retention scheme first of all. This is the one that we're getting the most questions about at present. Excuse me, I hope that slurp didn't come over. I've got a hot cup of tea. It's very necessary at present. So all UK-wide employers with the pay-as-you-earn scheme will be eligible. So if you don't have a pay-as-you-earn scheme, if you have freelancers that work for you that you pay on invoice, if you are a sole trader who just has yourself working and you take drawings from the business, this does not apply for you. Now, I think what's really important is that this sentence here. So it's all UK employers with the pay-as-you-earn scheme have support to continue paying part of your employee's salary for those that would otherwise have been laid off during this crisis. So it applies to employees who have been asked to stop working. And that's absolutely essential. So it's not employees that are working from home. It's not employees who are coming into the office. It is employees who have been asked to stop working and who you otherwise would have no work for and would have to put on unpaid leave or make redundant. Now, the good news here is that some businesses reacted very quickly, shut their doors, laid people off or sent them home with no pay. and did this early in March. So the scheme has been backdated to the 1st of March, which means that anybody that was on the payroll on 28th of April, so you can't just bring somebody back that you laid off 3 months ago, but if somebody was on the payroll on the 28th of April and they were laid off on the 6th of March, then you can actually bring them back into a furloughed status and pay them and receive that money back. So initially open for 3 months, will be extended if necessary, we wait to see. So at the moment to access it, and now this is an employment law rather than a financial one, that you need to designate their status from being to being furloughed workers. Now this is a change of status. This is a legal change, and it is subject to employment law. So you need to have conversations with your clients, or sorry, with your employees, and unless it clearly states in your contract that you can do this, you need to have conversations. You need to agree it with them. In our experience, most employees would rather be furloughed and have 80% of their wages than be made redundant, or than run the risk of your business being not surviving this crisis. Now, again, the details are still sketchy about how this will be administered. The HMRC are working very, very hard in the background to get this new portal live. There's going to be a new online portal through which the information about your employees that have been furloughed and about their earnings will be entered. So you enter that information, and then you will receive a grant towards their pay. It's not a loan, you don't need to pay it back. For the first few weeks, it is going to be challenging. So if you're furloughing people now that you need to pay, or if you furloughed them earlier on in March and you need to pay their salaries at the end of March, there is no grant available for you just yet. You'll have to claim that back retrospectively whenever this goes live. The form of how you'll be reimbursed also is not clear yet. So again, you need to claim that back retrospectively. We're hoping everything should be in place by the end of April, and that will mean that for those on monthly payroll and April pay, hopefully you will be able to claim the grant for the April pay before you actually have to pay out to your employees. And now that raises a question. We do have clients who are paid weekly, and we are urging them to have those conversations with their employees that they should look at going on to monthly pay, because otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult for the employer actually to manage their own cash flow through this crisis. If you're unsure at all, I would speak to your HR advisor about any legal implications and about how you communicate with your employees during this time. Communication's everything, and as I would frequently be reminded, when you have communication, if it's verbal, please then document it, follow it up, have any addendums to contracts or employment status agreed in writing with your employees. So that is the job retention scheme. So let's go back and look at some of the others. I'll leave the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme for now, as it is quite. Now let's touch on it actually. It seems great on the face of it. There is a temporary loan scheme available to support small businesses, and you won't have to pay interest for the first 12 months. At the moment, excuse me, we do know of some businesses which have applied for this loan, and so far what we are seeing that the banks are asking for really is quite onerous. They are looking for a huge amount of information, both on the business, the cash flow forecasting out the other side of this, and really what we all know for sure is that this is very unknown. We don't know how long it will last. The plans, the security of the business out the other side, and even personal finance information from any directors involved with the business. And I think you're finding that quite frustrating really whenever the scheme has been backed by the government, and the government will repay the banks 80% of any of the losses that they might be faced for businesses that they make this loan to, who just do not survive. You know, I'm sure you'll have seen a lot in the news about, well, we bailed and the government bailed the banks out in the last financial crisis. It's about time they supported our businesses too. And if you're a good, healthy business, then this is a great opportunity if you need it to go through it. But frankly, if your business was struggling anyway, this might just delay the issue and push any issue further down the line. So think very, very carefully, work with your bank and your advisors, and think carefully about the future planning of taking out a loan like this. It shouldn't be just a knee-jerk reaction. Eligibility, though, if your business is UK based, the turnover no more than 45 million per annum. There are other business bank eligibility criteria. So again, you can have a look at that if you click through the link to these sites. And there are a number of banks. All of the big banks are offering this, as well as a number of other financial institutions. The loans can be financed of up to £5 million and for up to 6 years, with the first year being interest free. Access it again, you can find everything through the links in this site, so you can explore that at your leisure later. The support in relation to business rates, which are available, now unfortunately these apply to England only, so Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, this does not apply to you specifically. I'm sure there will be things available in your areas, but that's not something I can comment on at present. So business rates holiday is for, the small businesses only in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. And they're saying that they will not have to pay business rates for the whole of the 2021 tax year. So this applies to businesses that already received the retail discount in 2019-20. So that poses a question, well, what happens if you're a new business? So what happens if you are a retail business who is putting all of the plans in place? You're at pre-trading stage, you are putting all of the plans in place and you are set up to open on the 1st of September. Well, we don't know at this stage. It looks like technically this suggests that if you didn't have access to the discount in 2019-20, then you do not get access in 2021. But again, the finer detail isn't yet, and the full legislation isn't yet available. So shops, restaurants, cafes, drinking establishments, cinemas, live music venues, leisure, hotels, etc. So gyms, small gyms should be able to access this as well. There is no action you need to take, and this will be applied automatically, and you will be notified by your local council. Again, there's guidance here if you want to click through these sites, and you can find your local authority if you do need to contact them. I know that Stockport Council does have a form that people can fill in if they think they should have access to this claim, but haven't had small business rates relief in the past. And again, for this business is based in Stockport, it's this form, small business grant funding, and that's in the Stockport MBC site there. Okay, let's go back and have a look at the couple of grants, cash grants that are available. So small business, where are we? Small business grant funding. So this is the £10,000. It was initially announced to be £3,000 of funding. One-off grant meaning that it's not a loan, you don't have to repay it. But it's for those smallest of businesses that already receive the small business rates relief. Again, you don't need to do anything. Your local authority will let you know, and they will send this grant to you. this grant doesn't need to be repaid, and it is just to cover your ongoing business costs. So whether that is your rent, your electricity, everything that is still going on in the background that you have to pay for. There is a slightly larger grant for businesses with a rateable value of up to £51,000, which is £25,000 per property of a grant. Now, again, it applies to, this one's not all businesses that fall into that category, but it's got to be within the retail, hospitality and or leisure sector. Again, you don't need to do anything, your local authority will write to you. However, if you're not sure that this applies to you, I would urge you just to contact your local authority to find them and to make contact. Most of them do have some sort of helpline, hotline or email address, so you can make your queries that way. So those are the grants. Grants were also introduced, I think I mentioned before, for nurseries, or sorry, business rates holiday for nurseries, not grants. It's exactly the same method as what we've just mentioned. Now, the one difference here is that it says that nurseries in England do not have to pay rates for the 2020-2021 year. So it doesn't state that you had to be operating your nursery in 2019-20. So again, on the face of it, it would seem that if you're planning to open a nursery in April after the Easter holidays, for example, or in September at the start of the new school year, then you should be able to take advantage of this year's rates relief. SSP rate rebate. So again, this is only for SME businesses, so those who employ fewer than 250 employees as at the 28th of February. So if due to this coronavirus crisis, you have had to make a lot of redundancies, and from the 6th of March, for example, you went down to 220 employees, but were previously at 260, then I'm afraid you cannot access this. The refund is nominal, but it's great that we have it. It will cover up to 2 weeks SSP per eligible employee. So again, you need to check the eligibility. The employees need to be earning above the certain thresholds to qualify themselves for SSP. And the rebate scheme is being developed. Unfortunately, it's not going to be, well, what we know so far, and again, all of this is subject to change as the legislation comes through and as the finer details are ironed out. But at the minute, we had hoped it might be applied in the same way as maternity pay is managed, that it will just be taken off your pay as you earn liabilities, but that's not the case. It's looking like it's going to be a rebate for which you'll need to apply in some way, shape or form. Other guidance, I think there's a lot of guidance here on, we have a quick jump over to the Gov site for employers and businesses. There is, I'll go for this one, I think. And again, I'll put links to any of these in the text or in the email that I can send out sharing this. Sick pay. So there's a lot of access here about what needs to happen in terms of certifying absence from work. You know, of course, it's going to be a lot more difficult for employees who do have symptoms and have to stay at home, potentially to get a diagnosis at all and to get a sick note at all. I think really, as you're having the SSP rebated to you, we would expect employers to, you know, support good employees and take their word for a lot of this. Again, it's at your, there is somewhere, and I'll try to find the link, there is somewhere a self-certification form which employees that have self-isolated because they're showing symptoms can download and fill in to give to their employer, which can be quite useful. Again, the the official advice in terms of what to do if your employee needs time off is to really work with them. It's got to depend in some ways about what you as an employer are able to do, and which of your employees are really needing to take advantage of some of this, and which potentially are maybe taking advantage of you, which I hate to say it will happen. The ACAS website is really helpful. Again, I can jump through there in relation to how to manage some of these situations from an HR point of view. I didn't mean to click off that site completely, but I can go back. It's just trying to open up ACAS now. So I'll take a small slip. Employees don't want to go to work, here's what you need to do. Actually, I think this is a site where there is the downloadable form. So again, staying at home, there's an awful lot on how to cope with the current crisis on the ACAS site from an HR and employment law point of view. I can send that link out too. So let's get back to business support. We talked about SSP. We've talked about the various grants available in the job retention scheme. Time to pay. HMRC are saying they're being a lot more flexible with time to pay arrangements for businesses who are experiencing difficulty paying their pay-as-you-earn liabilities, national insurance liabilities, their corporation tax liabilities. Now, at the moment, and again, we've had experience of clients calling HMRC to ask for extensions on their corporation tax liabilities. So while VAT deferrals will not accrue interest or penalties, time to pay arrangements for corporation tax, for example, will ensure that you don't have any penalties, but HMRC are still presently charging interest, and I think one of our clients was quoted earlier this week 3.25% interest on any arrangements made. So you need to speak to them, you need to factor that in. Corporate financing, my market, my people are that we talk to are small businesses, so I'm not even going to look at corporate financing at the moment. I've talked about VAT deferral, so you still need to, our understanding at present is that you still need to file your VAT returns on time, but that you will be given time to pay on this and there will be no penalties or interest. Now, what we do know is that if you arrange to have your VAT taken by direct debit every quarter or every month, then you should cancel that direct debit because it will still be taken, as that is something that you do voluntarily. So cancel any direct debits, and we will let you know whenever there is more information about the various extensions. At the moment, it's saying in VAT due now gets deferred until June 2020, and any VAT periods that fall within the crisis timeline will be deferred potentially until the end of the 2020-2021 tax year, so wouldn't fall due until March 2021. But again, the fine print is not yet available. Right, another one that has been raising a little bit of confusion. We're getting some mixed messages and conflicting advice from HMRC and ICAEW and so on, for example. Deferral of self-assessment payments. Now, as most of you will know, that once your self-assessment, your income tax liability for self-assessment reaches more than £1,000 for the year, HMRC introduced something called payments on account, whereby you then pay half of the next year's predicted liability upfront on the 31st of January with the balancing payment of what you're paying for the previous year. And then you pay the balancing payment of the future year by the 31st of July that year. So approaching the 31st of July, a lot of people will have payments on account due. HMRC has said that they can now be deferred until January 2021, so they don't need to be paid until then, and that no interest will accrue on those. Now, what gets complicated is that at the minute, eligibility, so it says here that if you're due to pay a self-assessment payment on account, then you are eligible for the deferment. Deferment is optional, as any persons who are still able to pay their second self-assessment payment should still do so. It's intended to assist those who are self-employed and suffering hardship. So it doesn't say anything more there, but if we go and have a little look at the finer detail in what's been communicated by HMRC's side, it then says eligibility, and it says the self-employed can access it. So where does that leave directors of limited companies, for example, who are paid by dividend and have a large payment on account, but they're not actually technically self-employed? We don't know at the moment. We phoned HMRC, and HMRC advised us that it was available for everybody who completes a self-assessment tax return, which is what one might think by looking here. However, we spoke to the ICAEW, who are the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, and they told us that their best understanding at the moment was that it was only for those who are registered for as self-employed. So there are mixed messages out there. I would suggest that if you can, as it says here, if you can pay your second self-assessment payment, that you should. And we are doing our best to get confirmed guidance on this, and we'll let you know just as soon as we have that. So now how do I come back to this? Stop share. There we go. So look, I hope that was useful. We don't have all the answers. We should hear a little bit more about what's available for the self-employed coming up shortly, hopefully today. As soon as we do, I'll get one of my usual articles out to clients. We'll get on the website, which is www.in-accountancy.co.uk, and we'll get the information there as soon as we possibly can. So for now, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a line in the comments. If this is useful, subscribe, etc., share. And look, we're here to help with whatever we can do. And just stay safe, everybody. Follow the guidelines and look after yourselves and your loved ones. Bye for now.